Today I'm going to share an Ebenezer story which at the time was a trauma, and it took me several years before I began to see the gift that lay in the hard experience I went through. And I wonder how often that's the case with us. Where are there hidden gifts in the hard times? So this was back in 2015 at the start of the year. We travelled as a family down to Cape Town for Miranda's well-earned graduation that we were going to celebrate from her masters. We'd been looking forward to this. This was our first family trip back to the country that we loved. We were staying with friends. The first week back there, it was wonderful to be back. It felt like home. We were literally running old trails that we knew really well, just enjoying the countryside, enjoying running. Miranda and I were training together for a half marathon, and I ran almost every day. And then at the weekend, at the end of the first week, we went to a beautiful vineyard for a graduation celebration. We woke up early in the morning and had a lovely long run in the hills of the vineyard. It was gorgeous. The next day, in the shower, I twisted strangely, picking up some soap from the floor. And in twisting, I felt a twinge in my back. Very quickly, my muscles went into spasm. It was very painful. I went to see a chiropractor. He did some treatment on me, which at the very least was not helpful. And I actually passed out in his waiting room, having left his office. The girls came in and found me passed out in his chair, which obviously was pretty traumatic for the girls. There then followed 2 painful weeks lying flat on my back with a slip disc. We were in a country that wasn't our home, but it was our home. We were staying with friends. We had to extend our trip. Thankfully, we had good health insurance. It paid for all the medical help. I got a first-class flight back with BA. That was a gift. But those 2 weeks really passed in a kind of a blur of discomfort, of pain, of too much medication. In the midst of that, there was the beauty of friendship. We were cared for so well by our friends. I saw really just how much our friends there cared for us. We received really genuine love. But it was a traumatic couple of weeks. It was difficult for the whole family. And following that, really, I had probably 3 years of slow recovery from a slipped disc. It was hard work. I had to learn new skills. I had to learn to stretch. I learned Pilates. I went to a Pilates class in Spanish, which I was struggling to understand, mostly with old women, and I felt like an ignorant child learning a new skill. I learnt yoga. I learnt to swim. For 3 years, I didn't run. There was no impact. Even when I walked on the trails of the hill, I felt this vulnerability that at any moment I could misstep and I'd feel this jolt of pain up my back. And I was kind of on edge the whole time. I felt vulnerable. I'd lost something that I loved. Running was my way of life. We ran together as a couple. It was our favourite date, was going for a run. Suddenly we lost that. We lost something that was a central part of our life. My identity was hit. And I never thought at the time that I would ever come to a place of being thankful for the trauma of hurting my back. But through that experience, I learned so many lessons. I guess one of the first things I learned was that I live in my body. I am my body, just as I am my soul. I am in my body, and how I live in my body affects all of my life, social, spiritual, physical, all of it. I am my body. My body's not a machine. It has to be cared for, it has to be nurtured. And basically, I had overrun. I'd kind of abused my body by just taking it for granted. I'd loved running all my life, and I guess I'd just gone for distance. I'd gone for lovely trails. I'd gone for speed at times, but I hadn't put in the hard work of looking after my core and my flexibility. I'd concentrated on the visible part of the exercise, which was running. Now, I also realised through this that if I continued long term in that way, I would cause lasting damage to my body. My body needed a reset. It needed a sabbath. It needed a break from running. And I had to learn new skills of caring for my body and building my core strength. All those years of running without proper stretching had built up my leg muscles, so my legs were strong. My muscles were tight, they were too tight. And that tightness placed undue pressure on my hinge, my lower back. And eventually something had to give. My legs were stronger than my back, and my back gave in. And I had a slipped disc. So I had to learn a new skill of stretching, of tightening my core muscles, that whole sheath of muscles around my abs, my lower back. I had to learn how to strengthen that. I had to learn new habits, yoga, pilates, stretching, swimming. I had to learn that core strength and the flexibility was important. I had to face my own fragility. When you're young, you don't recognize easily your limits. It's very easy to be strong and to run and not to realize the long-term consequences. And how did it feel for me when I was no longer in control, when my body didn't automatically do what I thought it should be able to do? How did it feel for me when I'd lost control? Interestingly though, having lost a degree of control, I also realized that my choices still had consequences, that I could choose to strengthen my body. I couldn't run at that stage, but I could do other things to strengthen myself, and my choices mattered. It was less attractive for me. Doing Pilates with the old women on the mat wasn't something that I particularly wanted to do at that stage, although I learnt to love it. It was the hidden work of working on my pelvic floor muscles, the hidden, unattractive discipline of guarding my core strength. That was key to my reset. That was key to my Sabbath. I had to learn to be content where I was. I couldn't run, but I could stretch. Would I do that? Would I give myself to the place where I was? Was I willing to give myself to be secure in who I was? A recovering runner rather than a runner. In time, I came to see that reset as a gift. In particular, I learnt to swim. For me, that has been such a gift. I remember at the start, 5 years ago, I could swim, but I wasn't a strong swimmer by any means. And when I started swimming, I would swim 2 lengths and I would rest. And then I'd swim 2 lengths. And after 10 lengths, 250 metres, I'd be tired. I got out of the pool. I slowly built up from 10 lengths to 20 lengths. And eventually I swam 40 lengths a kilometre and I was elated. And then slowly my time for swimming a kilometre dropped. And then after a while I could swim 2 kilometres. And then suddenly one day I realised I could just basically keep swimming. And so I swam. I swam for 2 hours. I swam 5 kilometres. And I realised I was now loving this activity that had started as a laborious discipline that was hard work. And now this 6 weeks of lockdown has been the longest period of time in more than 4 years that I haven't swum. And I'm craving swimming. It was funny, last year, 2019, I felt in a weird place in comparison to the people around me. I felt that my body, my mind, me, I was reverberating to a different frequency from the people around me. I remember in September our team met together and we were talking about our expectations as we came back together after our summer break. And people had great expectations, visions, dreams. But really where I was at and being really true to myself, when I spoke, I was surprised at what I heard myself saying. I said to the group, my happiest times over the summer have been climbing mountains and swimming in the middle of the lake. What I really want over these next 2 or 3 months is to do more swimming. You see, I'd found in swimming a place of peace and tranquility and solitude. I love that quote from Eric Liddell. I love to run fast. When I run fast, I feel like I give God pleasure. I kind of felt like that with swimming. A couple of years ago, I remember I was at some meetings in Senegal, in Dakar, long meetings, and they were good times. It was good to be with people. And there was a lovely swimming pool right outside the the meeting room, and several times a day I was swimming. Whenever I wasn't in a meeting, it felt like I was trying to swim. And I was just loving the exercise, breaking up the activity of the long meetings. And one time we were singing, we were worshipping, and we sang a well-known song, I sing for joy at the work of your hands. And I found myself singing at the top of my voice, I swim for joy at the work of your hands. And I realised that for me, swimming had become part of my worship, part of reflecting God's creative goodness, part of kind of living out my passion. Swimming's amazing. I love wild water swimming. I love being in the middle of a lake, on my own, no one else in the lake, that's the best, and feeling just the immensity of the water. You swum for 20 minutes, you're in the middle of this lake, and there's just water all around you. The power of that, you're so small, and yet somehow you're cutting through the water under your own steam. You're feeling fit and strong. There's a solitude. There's a silence. There's just the rhythm of your breathing. It's beautiful. You're away from the crowd. All the clutter of life has been stripped away. You're not carrying anything. No overstimulation. No heavy responsibility. It's just you swimming. For me, that's a Sabbath. Your swimming is work, but it's become rest and replenishment. And that whole experience, I suppose, of swimming is a thing of beauty, and I now love it. And so I'm thankful for that trauma of hurting my back, because it taught me new skills. It taught me to stretch. It taught me not to fight the stretch, not to fight the pain of the stretch, but to accept it, to breathe into it, to accept where I was, and to press into the stretch, to press into the discomfort of the stretch, and in doing that to slowly stretch and strengthen my muscles. And that's what Sabbath and reset is all about. Right now I'm reading Mark Buchanan's book, Spiritual Rhythms, Being with Jesus Every Season of the Soul. He quotes Paul there, telling us to be thankful in all circumstances, and for all things. And Buchanan says that's extreme. And I'm quoting here, but it's not half mad. It's subversively wise. Thankfulness throws mountains into the sea. Thankfulness can overcome evil with good. Thankfulness can turn adversity into advantage. Thankfulness is more than an act, it's an orientation. It's a reframing of reality, not in some whistling in the dark way, but in a fixing our eyes on what is unseen way. Radical thankfulness makes sense only if behind our touch and see reality, another reality is hard at work, which is exactly the case. And he goes on, so radical thankfulness is a way of hailing things unseen. It is, in the root sense, a declaration that the unseen God is very much on the job, not surprised or dismayed by a single thing, and able to work it all to good. I wonder if you would practice right now radical thankfulness. Take a situation you'd rather not be in. And he could have said, like this lockdown, spend time giving thanks in it. Thank God in spite of it. Thank God for all the good that still abounds regardless of it. Now, take a further step. Thank God for it. Do this not as an act of masochism, but as an act of faith. Of course, you're not thankful for the specific grief or loss, but one day you'll see that even the worst things in your life, God used as raw material for some of the best things in your life. You'll be thanking him then. Might as well get a head start. I love that idea. Thankfulness. So I wonder what you're thankful for right now. Even in this lockdown. I mean, I've heard so many theories that this is a time of Sabbath. This is a reset. Some people say it's a divine judgment. Some people say it's a demonic attack. Some people see the Antichrist in it. There's all sorts of ideas and potential solutions. And one thing's for certain is that they can't all be right. So I'm recognizing how difficult it is to understand this time that we're in, and how difficult it is to say with any confidence, this is what God is doing. But one thing I am resting in is that I can receive this time. I don't have to fight it. Just like I've learnt to stretch. I've learnt to breathe with the stretch. I've learnt to give myself to it, not to wish I was somewhere else, but to accept this is where I am today, and I'm going to stretch, and I'm going to feel the discomfort of it, and actually I'm going to lean into that discomfort because it's somehow doing something for me that is strengthening me. I think actually that's what thankfulness is, and that's the role thankfulness plays in this lockdown. It's somehow breathing with it. It's receiving it as a gift and allowing it to be a reset. So to what extent is this reset something to be thankful for? If we need a reset, we need one. My back, I needed a reset. I could fight it or I could receive it. Interestingly, yesterday, after 42 days of lockdown, Manu, as a under 14-year-old, was finally allowed to leave the house for the first time after 42 days. That's something to be thankful for. It's interesting, quarantine comes from the Latin for 40. Hopefully now, after 40 days, it's beginning to come to an end. I'm thankful in this season for family, for time, for beauty, for presence, for living in the moment, for a stripping back of overstimulation. I'm thankful that I'm not carrying heavy responsibility right now. I'm thankful for this reminder that I am small. Just like when I'm swimming in the middle of the lake, I am small, surrounded by an infinite power, far greater than me. I can't fight it. I'm small. I'm thankful for good rhythms. I'm thankful for silence. I'm thankful for the time to work on my hidden core strength, those spiritual disciplines that are so easily neglected for the glamour of being up front and holding a microphone and having the stage. The unattractive, silent work of pelvic floor exercises is much needed in this generation. And I'm thankful for a chance to give myself to that. I'm thankful for creativity. I'm thankful for learning that I can be in this place of discomfort and actually learn to enjoy this new normal. And that seems a paradox in itself. One day, just to repeat Buchanan, one day you'll see that even the worst thing in your life, God used as raw material for some of the best things in your life. You'll be thanking him then. Might as well get a head start.